guys for all coming to the Spine Bookshop's author chat for November. I'm here with the lovely J.L. Burrows, who wrote the series, the book Haunted by Darkness, and is a part of the, I always have to look, the Balance Keeper series. I love that. So we're gonna, basically kind of what we're gonna do is I'm gonna talk to her for a little bit, and then I think you said you're gonna take some questions, and then you were gonna do a reading. And then when you're doing the questions, I'm also gonna be looking at our TikTok live. So if anybody has questions on there, okay. And then you'll do a reading, and then we'll have author signing. So for anybody who hasn't purchased the books, you can purchase them from me, and then she'll sign them. So let's see. First question: what inspired you to start writing?
So my students actually inspired me to start writing because we were I was teaching a creative writing course, and there was no curriculum for the course. And about 6 months before that, I had been feeling like I should write this fiction series, and I thought it was the stupidest thing, and that I'm a serious person, and serious people don't write fiction. And I just had all these preconceived notions, and I put them out to the side, and I was like, no, I've written 2 memoirs, I've written a curriculum to teach middle schoolers how to write, and I've done all of these things that are very serious, and I'm a teacher, and teachers are serious people. And so I had decided that I wasn't going to do it. Well, I walked in that August, and the principal calls me into her office, which, by the way, is not good for anyone, not kids or teachers. Still gives me that little like, oh. And so I go into the principal's office, and she's like, you're going to teach a creative writing course. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, and there's no curriculum. And I was like, oh, okay, God, touche, you win. And at that point was like, we need to write books. So I walked into the sixth grade, creative writing course, and I said, do you guys want to write books? Like, do you want to do something real? Like, we could make short stories, or we could try to do something like really cool. And they were all down with it. And I said, you're going to get to write whatever you want to write, in whatever vein you want to write, as long as it's school appropriate. And so we all started writing books and discovering this process. And so I wrote Haunted by Darkness not in the classroom, but during that class time, and then shared it with the students and used it as a kind of a teaching moment about how, like, I had this one scene with the cockroach, and I was so proud of this cockroach. The things that you enjoy. You'll notice through a lot of...
Kafka wrote a whole thing about a cockroach, so there's no judgment here.
Well, and there's actually cockroaches in my upcoming series as well. I have a thing to write about them. I don't know why. But this particular scene I was really proud of, and I shared it with them, and then they found mistakes in it, and then, it just opened up this door for us to start a dialogue about writing that wasn't the same as, you need to do this, and then do this, and then now you replicate that. And so it kind of allowed them to really imagine in a way that's less locked down. And it was so fun. And so that story so I wrote that one in September. I wrote Rulers of Darkness that year in December. And I wrote the 4th book, which is not out yet. I wrote that one like in April. So the whole series just went, right? Like it just poured out of me. And then I spent the next 4 years really diving into what makes a book sell, what makes a book good, what are the things that I should take out, what are the things that should stay in, that kind of stuff,
That's really cool that you did that in a class with kids.
Yeah, well, the really cool part is, so I taught them in 6th grade. I moved to 1, 2, 3 other schools, went to this new school, and lo and behold, 2 of the same kids that I taught in 6th grade were there in 10th grade when I released my book that month.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so it was really like a very cool cycle. So they got to see it come all the way to the end of that story. Yeah.
Okay, well, so you're 4 or 5 books into writing now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what advice would you give to a new writer?
I think there's 2 veins. One is, I would say, write every day. Like, don't stop. And especially if you think it's trash, don't even look at the writing. Just write. Just get into the process of allowing your imagination and your creativity to be free and explore it, because that is, we spend so much time worrying about what people think, or what trying to form ourselves into something that is outside of ourselves, that we can't really be as creative as we want to. One of the things that I started by typing the books, right? And I thought, this is great, I'm going to type them, but I always was fighting this whole, like, oh, I just made a mistake, I better go fix it, oh, I got to go make this look good. And I started dictating books, which is so much faster. And actually the fluidity of the scenes became better, everything became more vibrant. So just allowing yourself to explore all kinds of different avenues of creativity and letting it pour out of you without judgment. The other side of that would be learn. I wish I'd have started learning how to write the books before I wrote the books. That probably would have been the right way to do it. But hey, there really isn't a wrong way. So afterwards I went back and I was like, oh, we teach in school, third person omniscient. It's not cool. No one wants to read that. And no one teaches that. Like I had been teaching that there's these types of, point of view that you can use. I'm like, no, it's not true. And I also had to learn that, readers dictate a lot. Like we need to be aware of what readers want. And I had written this whole series aware of only what I wanted. So that was a big thing. So learning and getting out there and getting to know other authors and then writing coattails. It's the only way to really make it in the industry and find people who are willing to pour into you and to love on you and to inspire you and to direct you and to give you feedback.
Love that, because I remember you and I had talked about, and I can't remember, what was it, the second person, where we were talking about the thing that rips you out of a book faster than anything, so that you can't stay in your reading, and it was the second person of, I did this, and I said that, and I went this way, and it just...
Well, and it was you go here.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You go here, you go there, and you're like, I didn't go there.
Yeah.
What you're talking about.
I cannot read books that do that because it's just, no.
Yeah, seriously.
Give me
And it's funny because now when I read books and I see third omniscient, I'm like, you shouldn't have done it. Now, some people can do third omniscient, don't get me wrong. There are some people that have made it their bread and butter. They're amazing at it. It is a level of skill I don't have. And it challenges me when I read it because we live inside one head. We have one head, one brain, one self. That's how we perceive the world. And so that's why third limited or first person is better because it is how we perceive. We can relate to that. When we hop from one person's head to another, it's really hard to keep track of what's going on.
Right.
And we kind of lose sense of who each person is because we can't really delve into that personality and become that person, which is what reading should be. It's almost like a long-term hallucination,
Yes.
You can't do that if you're hopping from one thing to the next.
So every writer has their own writing space, like the things that they have to write. What is your space like?
I was just talking about this with my students because I gave them a timed writing prompt this week and I was like, y'all, this has got to be so hard on you because you're surrounded by distractions and people coughing and you're at an uncomfortable desk in an uncomfortable chair. And I'm like, here, write, be creative, and you have to do it in 90 minutes. That just seems so unreasonable. And I'm like, so I'm not sure I could do it. I went to a conference in Vegas just this last month.
Right, I remember seeing pictures from that.
And one of the teachers in the conference was like, okay, I want you to write this. And I was like, oh, but I don't have my salt lamp. I'm sorry. And I don't have my special candle that crackles because I have a fireside candle and it crackles and that sound is how I know I'm in my space and my zone and I can be creative. And I'm like, I don't have these things. So my first reaction was no, I'm not going to write because you didn't bring a salt lamp. Sorry.
And a firecracker candle.
Yeah. So my space is very important to me. I'm very blessed. I just recently moved into a new house about 2 years ago, and I have this office that is totally dedicated. And I have right at my feet is a dog bed, and my dogs know when it's time to write. They love writing time. It's their favorite time of the day because we do a whole cycle of treats right beforehand. So they do their tricks and it's our exercise time. And then they come in and Jack's bed is right here and Lacey's bed is right there. By the way, they are characters in the books as well.
Of course they are.
So, Lacey especially. And the part where she licks the nose is accurate. Lacey, my dog, will lick you. So if you ever come over, be careful. She will try to. She is 100% French. She will absolutely try to lick you in your mouth, but if you close it, she'll get your nose right in there. So the dogs have their spots and they're right next to me and they stay the whole time. I have my warm tea. I usually drink cinnamon apple tea by Celestial Seasonings. If you haven't had it, I highly recommend it. It's super wonderful
See, now,
for
I
the
like
fall.
the lemon verbena.
I like that too. I do that sometimes, but usually I have to be sick. Like I have to, or on the verge of getting sick. Like I have.
I like tea when I'm sick, and I get a thing of lemon and then stick with peppermint stick in it.
Oh, I like
With
that.
a little bit of honey.
See, no, I drink tea every day.
Well, I get the
every day.
the peppermint sticks that are about as thick as your finger that the grandmothers would always have.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's funny. My family was talking about peppermint stick this last Thanksgiving when they didn't have a cinnamon shaker, so they tried to grate the cinnamon stick. I was like, dude, the store's not that far away. So yeah.
So for you, what comes first, plot or character, or are they interchangeable?
Oh, so for me, it's plot 100%, which is really a funny thing because I'm learning that's not what everybody else thinks. And so I've had to really go, oh, so readers care more about the character? Okay. Because all I want to know is like, what happens next? What happens next? Like, that's the exciting part for me. And so I'm really plot heavy. I'm really great at writing battle scenes. Like, those are my favorite parts where it's like really active or oddly enough, torture scenes. Yeah, don't ask. I don't know.
I'm here for it.
But I mean, I truly enjoy those like scenes. And then people are like, but here, I want to feel how they feel. And I'm like, oh, feelings? That's so, But yeah, I'm learning that I personally have to change what I like so that I can develop characters because it should be character based. And that's what people want. They want the character based. But my books will always have a lot of plot in it. And that is where my stories start.
Right.
For me, they start with, I want to have this event happen and then these events around that thing to happen. And so then I'm like, oh, I'll pick this person or I'll pick that person. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, how do you know if that's the right character? And I was like, jeepers, I've never even thought about that. I don't know.
I like plot-based books, as long as the plot is moving.
See, that's
and
really
it's
important
going.
to me. Yes.
Because, you read some books and they spend and I love The Princess Bride. However, when you spend an entire chapter describing the thread of the dress that Princess Buttercup...
No, see, yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
okay, it was a red silk dress, moving on.
Right,
you
yes,
know?
I totally agree.
So there are some authors that the stories are really great if you could just get out of your own way.
Right. Well, and description is one of those places where especially newer writers struggle to find that balance between how do I keep the plot moving? How do I describe this thing? Where does the description go? One of the things in the conference I talked a lot about, it was really, really helpful, is talking about like the balance between those things to keep the pace moving for the readers.
Gotcha. Well, okay, that's awesome. So every writer celebrates in some way when they finish a book. Like James Caan got kidnapped by a crazy person and had his ankle shattered in misery. So,
Yeah.
some other people have a glass of wine. What is your preference? Somewhere closer to the latter.
I'm so funny. I'm not a big celebrator in that way. Like the act of writing is what I enjoy.
Okay.
So my surprise to myself is to move into the next book or the next thing. Like I usually actually start the next book before I finish releasing the previous one because the actual act of writing is therapeutic to me.
Okay.
I find it is a part of my daily space. I write about 45 minutes to an hour every day. That I can, because some days I can't. And
Sure.
when I don't have that, I almost feel like mentally blocked, and I don't
Okay.
feel that. Like I've gotten to where it's like exercise for my mind, and so like for me, it's having. Usually, I ask Ricky to cook a special meal because he cooks all of our meals, and I'm like, I feel like we should do something, and so he'll make steak or shrimp or something, and that'll be it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm pretty much just love writing and love being with my people and online and my followers. I mean, I have a good crew, and so they actually do a good job of celebrating it for me. So then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this was fun. Yeah, let's do that. So that's really cool.
I love that. So how many books have you actually written? I know that I guessed that earlier, but what's the actual number?
So the last time I counted was 11. Yeah, I know. I have 3 published, but it takes so much more work to get it ready to publish.
No,
yeah. Yeah, so I have 11. I really planning this year to increase the amount that I publish so that I can get those out the door. I found a critique partner I adore, and she is really helping me move faster through the material. But I have the whole series for the adult dystopian coming up that I'm starting to release in March. It's all written, and I'm about to buy covers for all 3. I have book 1 of the middle grade series is written. I'm just revising it now. I have the fourth book in that series written. It's at about 60,000, so I'm going to probably add about 30,000 more words to it, but it's pretty close to done. I have the 2 memoirs that I've written, which one is about school teaching, and so that won't get released till I retire. And then I have the one about my husband's battle with brain cancer, and so that one I'm hoping to release this May is my hope. And so then I did a 3-book series for middle school curriculum that I released in the school system, but I've never released out to help other people like homeschooling parents or so I'd like to finish that up and get that out the door. And then I also have a book of poetry that I haven't released that I'm just kind of sitting on. So lots of things in the works.
Okay. So out of all the characters that you've written, which one's your favorite?
My husband's character was really fun to write.
Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, so it was a challenge because my husband's a very, very quiet person, and so I wanted to write a character that reflected this like kind of nonverbal man that's like, you know, almost communicates through grunts and but is very powerfully loves, you know, and is loves through action and loves through not through words, you know, and that was really something that I wanted to create in this world because a lot of my characters are mouthy, you know, because, you know, hey.
Gee, I wonder where they get
I don't know at all. So yeah, like I kind of, my corner of the market is sassy, you know, female heroines who are out there fighting their battles and
I love that,
struggling
though.
through. Yeah, I think there's that the world needs more of that. I think our young ladies need more of that. Less Disney and more you conquer the world.
You know, I don't even mind Disney. I just think that, and I mean, I love Sleeping Beauty, so I say that. You know.
Hey, I love Disney. I'm not saying,
but
I'm just saying there needs to be a balance.
Right. I really love that, especially with and I know that one of the people here, he and I were talking about it earlier, that YA, it's been kind of that under the radar genre of books for a while, and I think that we've got the younger generation that's coming up, and they're demanding strong female characters.
Yeah,
and will not stand for the, oh no, what are we gonna do? Where's the big strong man to help me?
Yeah.
They're like, no, get out of the way. I'm gonna do it myself.
And I think it's more realistic when you have that girlfriend in the scene where the girlfriend's like, what are you doing? Like, get it together and get out there and do something about this.
Yes.
And I feel like, you know, we need to empower our daughters to be able to believe in themselves that they can stand up and that they can battle and fight their battles.
Yes.
And that they can think through these scenarios. Now, you'll notice in my books there's a lot of themes of teamwork. And that's because we aren't alone on this planet.
I think that's important.
You know, and I think it's important for them to see that too. So I feel like, you know, it's kind of a combination. Now, I'm not saying Disney isn't wonderful. My daughter grew up on it. I grew up on it. I think it's great. I just feel like me personally, I grew up looking for someone who is going to rescue me from my own life, and my adult journey has taught me that I am the one that needs to rescue me from my own life. And
I agree.
I feel like that's a truth that we need to invite young adults into.
Yes.
So that then they start their journey. They're not going, what am I supposed to do?
Where's my white horse? And then, no.
So it's really important to me to empower, especially, I mean, I teach 100, 120 kids every year. And when I'm working with them, I want them to think of themselves a certain way.
I love that. So I know we talked about this earlier. Sorry, you guys. Are there any characters in your books that are based on anyone you actually know in real life?
What's really funny is almost all of them are. And so a lot of my inspiration comes from the classroom.
Okay.
You know, I get to see a lot of students and their characters and how they believe they act. I feel like the real world is really our greatest inspiration. You go and you meet people and you see people and you're like, man, that's a really quirky person. I love it. And I've noticed also that when I'm reading, my favorite characters are the ones that are super quirky. Like they're different. Like, I don't know if you've watched Wednesday, which is a really like current show right now.
It's on my list.
She's
along with about 500
super quirky, and the thing that I love about it is she is unapologetically herself, and that she goes into these scenes and she's the heroine of it. And I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the Addams Family, but that's not like, I wouldn't see that in the Addams Family. You know, they're usually the villains.
Sure.
So, and it's a really great, I mean, it's a really great play on the character. I feel like they did a spectacular job on that. So anyhow, that to say, like Abigail, she's here today. She was the character inspiration for the angel. Rhiannon is here today as her nickname in the book was Rhea. She is the inspiration for the main character in After the Darkness. And of course, my husband is here today, and he is the inspiration for Mac in the series that's coming out in the future. And so, yeah, each one, pretty much if I know you, you're at risk.
Oh, gosh.
We're gonna let that sit in for a second.
I like you a whole lot. You're really pretty.
Well, I mean, I don't kill my characters. Well, not all of them.
That doesn't make me feel better. All right, so I always ask 2 questions. Oh, well, no, I'm not quite there yet. Okay. So I'd like to know, as a writer, I assume that you're a reader.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have authors that you like to read?
Oh, definitely.
Like top 2 today? Because I know that changes.
I was going to say, that's not fair. I was hoping you were going to be like, where do you find them? Not like 1 or 2. Like,
Just give me a couple that you really like in general.
So right at this moment, I'm reading Stephanie Lazinski's, and I'm so bad with names. I want to say Majesty was the name of it. It is spectacular. It has dragons in it, which my students, if they watch this, are going to be like, oh, it's Miss Burrows. Yeah. I love books with dragons. I love the way she has done it. I haven't finished the book, so I'm like 14% away from finished, and she is an indie author. It's her first book out. It is spectacular. It is clean, clean in both ways. Of both, like the editing was so spectacularly done. You don't know it's not a traditionally published book. It's amazing.
Sure.
And then also clean in the sense that there isn't any content that would be something that I wouldn't approve for my 13-year-old daughter. Which is kind of a lens I look at through a lot of things. And it has, for me, I am a Christian, and so for me, I'm always looking for things that really talk about truth and wholesomeness and how to carry yourself in the battle. And so in her book, I really have enjoyed reading it. It is kind of, it's just brand new. It's brand new. She doesn't even have the rest of her books out in the series. So I'm like, okay, now.
Well, you brought up the Christian thing. So this book, I've never read anything like this. Because you bring, it's almost like Harry Potter meets, I'm not very familiar with the Christian genre.
Yeah.
But I love that you somehow were able to do that, to bring Christianity and magic in this way that is just amazing. I love,
Thank you.
What was the inspiration for that?
I don't know if you ever heard of Frank Peretti, but when I was a teenager, I read Frank Peretti's This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness, and it struck me so deeply. It meant, it changed, so we talk in church a lot about a lot of things. You know, we talk about angels, we talk about demons, and we talk about spiritual warfare, and, you know, it's just talk. It never became anything more than that for me. So when I read Frank Peretti's book, it gave me a visual image for me to really sit and go like, that's how it kind of lays out. Now, I'm not saying that Frank Peretti's book was prophetic. I'm just saying it helped me as a young adult in my formative years to really say, okay, I get it now. I get how spiritual warfare works into this life. I get that this evil thing or this good thing is really truly out there, and it really set a fire in me.
Sure.
For me to get to spread that word and to say, you know, there's hope. There's hope out there. We don't have to live in the darkness. We don't have to hurt. We don't have to walk around feeling blind and lost, which a lot of our students today are struggling with. I mean, we're having a lot of students that are committing suicide or taking their own lives because they don't have any hope. And so it's really important to me. So this series, when I read his is an adult series. Adult in the Christian world does not mean it contains content that's bad. It just means that an adult is the main character. So as a teenager reading an adult doing these things, it was hard for me to see how I fit into this whole thing. And so one of my goals was to write a young adult series that would show teens how this exact scenario could play out in their lives.
I love that. I love that because that's such an interesting genre.
It is. It's a fun one too. I think a lot of people get really scared, especially Christians. You got both sides. Christians are kind of scared of it because of the magic element. Well, honestly, the sorcery in it is all considered evil, and there's a reason for that, because in the Bible, magic is something that is associated directly to evil. And so I stay in line with that. And angels are truly there to help us. That's a biblical truth. And so I did a lot of research and worked. My dad's a preacher, and worked a lot with my dad on how to make sure that the angels I created were biblically aligned, that the evil that I created was biblically aligned. And even if once you get to Rulers of Darkness, which is book 2, I had so much fun with book 2. I got to create hell, which I know you're probably thinking like, that's a weird thing to enjoy. I know, I'm a kind of weird person. I don't know what to say. I had a lot of fun. I know. I had a lot of fun creating hell, and just really thinking through the how was I going to do this? Because there's really not a lot of information on it. And so it was I really got to be super creative there and had a lot of fun. But I had to do a lot of research on how dragons are represented in the Bible, because I wanted it to be. So a lot of the inspiration of Rulers of Darkness comes straight out of Revelation.
I love that so much. All right, so these are the 2 questions I always ask every single author.
Okay.
Okay, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
My favorite flavor of ice cream is mint chocolate chip.
You and my daughter would get along fantastically.
It is the best. So, I mean, I don't know what your favorite is, but it better be mint
Chocolate.
chocolate chip.
Anything chocolate.
Well,
Although
there's chocolate in it.
Ben & Jerry's does one that's the s'mores, and it's like the chocolate with the melted marshmallow and the graham cracker.
Well, we've already talked about Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah,
That's a sore spot with me.
I know,
I
I'm
can't
sorry.
have it because of the egg.
Right, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I'll never know what this s'mores ice cream tastes like.
I'm sorry.
I know. We need to have a conversation with Ben and Jerry.
Yeah, if you're watching, I'm just saying. All right, so last question, coffee or tea?
Coffee. Wait, that's a question?
Yes, because some people, Jessica, like tea
Instead of coffee?
instead of coffee.
So my husband may be one of those as well.
See, okay, yeah, we got a
Yeah,
tea drinker.
yeah.
I like tea when I'm sick.
I like tea. So for me, tea is an afternoon drink and coffee is a morning drink. So
Yes.
I I like both, but I go to bed looking forward to my morning cup.
Coffee is a morning drink.
Okay.
Wine is an evening drink.
I'll go to bed because in the morning I get coffee and I'm allowed to have the coffee then. And so
Yes.
that's kind of my way
Our
of
coffee maker broke, and I looked at my husband, and he goes, no, by the time you get home, we'll have a new coffee maker, I promise.
I love it.
It's like,
I love it.
okay.
Yeah. I love it.
All right, so I'm going to get up, and I'll let you guys take questions.
Yeah.
Pantser or outline?
Great question. So for those of you that don't know, a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants, meaning they don't have a plan and they write by instinct. And an outline is what we call a plotter. It's somebody who makes a plan and then follows that plan to write their book. So I started out as a pantser. I love writing as a pantser. It's probably my favorite. What happened, though, was I found out that I can't be very efficient as a pantser. And so I started plotting to help me become more efficient so that as I'm writing, I know that what I'm writing is what needs to be in the book, and I don't need to go back and cut out huge chunks of text that I was just writing and got in my own self and head and just, oh, I like describing that dress, as she was talking about, so I'm just going to describe that dress for 2 pages. But I do leave myself room to pants in my novels, and so I do a paragraph outline for each chapter, and it gives me the high points of things I know I need to hit, and then I just allow myself to pants within those parameters. So I'm kind of a little of both. So that's called a plantser.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that. I love that y'all have terms for that. TikTokers that are watching, if you guys have questions, just post them and I'll ask them for you as well. Anybody else?
Oh, I got dozens of questions.
How about it?
Are you self-published? Okay.
I am self-published.
You mentioned you were buying the cover. Okay. So,
Yeah. Actually, that was a tough decision. I started really trying to go into the trad world and doing the query routine and putting myself out there for rejection after rejection. Honestly, that's a part of the game either way. But what I'm friends with Craig Martell, who is in charge of 20 Books Vegas, which is a huge writers conference, but he's kind of does a lot of speaking in a lot of places. And I asked him, I pinned him down one time when he was visiting Nashville, and I said, I'm really struggling with this decision. I feel like trad verifies me. It's like, oh, this is a good author. It's this outside check mark of approval. And I said, how did you decide this? And he said, well, I wanted to make money. And so he decided to go indie. And I thought, okay, I can go with that. And at that point now, mind you, I've got 7 years of sales in my background, sales and marketing. And I've, worked in multiple countries as a missionary and then back here. And I've done 3 different careers. And I thought, I could add indie published to that. I think I could do that. Now, I didn't want to. I really wanted someone else to take on things like editing, and I really hate picking covers. I feel that is not my strength. The written word is my strength. And so I look at images and I'm like, that looks good. And everybody else is like, nah. And I'm like, okay, it was pretty. So I have to really I had to teach myself what makes a cover a good cover. I had to teach myself, I now know how to format a book. So it's been a process, a long process. I'm a year and some into my first year as a published author, my career as a published author. I shouldn't say first year, it's my career as a published author. And I have to say, I don't regret anything. I think it's been hard, but I think it's hard either way. And the trad published that I've spoken to are making pennies on the books, and I really am happy with what my choice is. I like that I do have the control. I can publish a book whenever I want to. I don't have to wait a year or wait for when the doors open or wait for when my book sparks someone's interest. I can actively go out and find people who will like my book. And there's somebody for every book. So it does make it feel lonely at times. That is the hardest part, which is why I say, you really need to find your tribe, and you really need to be surrounded by people who are doing what you're doing, And I know Stephanie Lazinski because we work together. We do a fantastic evening of fantasy and science fiction. And so we meet together once a month, a group of authors, and we put on this show for our followers so that they can find us and learn about us. And so really networking and getting to know people is really important if you're going to do indie.
Are you in any writers groups? Do you live in Nashville?
I actually live here in Smyrna, but I have been a part of the Nashville Indie Authors, which is a group here, and that's the only one that I've participated. It's funny how I don't think like that, and I think part of that's because I'm out all day teaching, so when I come home, I don't want to have to go out anywhere else. So I'm a little reclusive when it comes to my personal time, and so yeah, I don't do a lot of my groups are online, and I love it. I run 3 groups in Twitter. Well, now, so you've been talking about TikTok, and now I'm all like, which one is it? Yeah. So I have 3 authors group that I run in Twitter. I have 2 in Instagram that I run, and then I have a huge one on Facebook that I run. And so for me, it's really important. 20 Books to 50K is a group started by Michael Enderle, and he's the one that says a rising tide lifts all boats. And the idea behind it is we're not in competition with each other. We are in a relationship with one another, and we need to support one another. And I really find that to be a very valuable and valid way to do business as an indie author.
I have a theory that there's a $20 bill that is just circulating among writers. It's the same $20 bill. Going back to the process. Now, Clancy, do you know where the book is going to wind up? I find I have to know where the story is going to wind up, even though I may not know what road I'm going to take to get to it.
Usually,
do you know where it's going to end?
Usually, actually, it starts for me there. I want this thing to happen, and that thing is going to be the thing that happens in that third quarter, that 75% mark, and then the rest of the story has to be built. And I'm always going, where should it start? So the beginning to me isn't as clear as the ending. I start with that ending part. And what's also very interesting is I don't think in a book, I think in a series. I don't think that I'm capable of writing a single book. For me, this series could have been 7 books. I've cut it off at 4 because I wanted to write a different series. But yeah, I think, I have now 3 series that I'm working on actively. And it's just, to me, it's not just the book, but the whole entire, so I have each book's ending point is where I start, and then I have the series ending point, which is where I start. Yeah.
Have you tried shorter lengths? Have you done any short stories?
I have. I went to the conference, and one of the ladies, and her last name's Rush, I can't remember her first name, but she's a huge story writer. She's been in the business in traditional publishing for short stories for 40 years, and she challenged everybody to write a story a week. So I'm about 3 weeks behind on that challenge, but time, I don't understand. It's like weeks just kind of flip by now, and they don't have any sustenance anymore. But anyways, I'm going to try and do that. Yeah, I really enjoy writing short stories. I have a couple that I've put out there and put into anthologies. I'm working on getting into anthologies because that's free publication. I mean, not publication, free advertising. So anthologies are a great route to go. And so I've got a couple in anthologies. I have a short story that I do as a reader magnet. I have a novella that I've written. So yeah, I've written different lengths, but honestly, my favorite's lots of words. Lots. Well, I mean, fantasies, you're 90 to 110,000 words, yeah. Yeah, I'm toying with the idea of writing romance. So in the conference, they said, romance is big. If you want to sell, get into romance. I'm like, ooh, those covers are so.
The bodice rippers with Fabio.
Not even those. So in the Christian genre, it's like the women with the windswept hair that just look. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could have that cover. Like, can we make your own cover for them or something? I don't know. Anyhow, the covers alone make me kind of go,
I have friends who write romance.
Well, and it's very formulaic, very strict. And I'm looking at it because, financially, it's a good avenue to go. The other one was, I want to say psychological thrillers, or there was some sort of like suspense. And so I'm toying with looking at some of those other genres to play around with and to check out as far as, because fantasy, actually, young adult fantasy is a smaller niche industry. And so it's harder to break into, harder to find your readers. So I'm looking into other avenues, but I might just stick with my niche because I really love it. And you can't have dragons in a romance. That's like,
Yes, you can.
Yes.
So you've talked about covers and how that wasn't your thing originally. So what, do you do any focus grouping or anything like that to kind of pull your tribe to see about if they like the cover or when
I have to. I
decide?
have to. I'm so bad at it. When I first got my first cover, what was this, a year and a half ago, I didn't tell the designer to give it a background. So she just put it on a white background. Like it was just white with a dragon and a person. And I'm like, something's wrong here. I don't know what it is, but something is not right. And I'm like, why didn't she put something behind it? And, well, so you have to tell them to do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need a script. What do I say to this? And so like in each cover, it's been a journey of like, how do I communicate? Because you have to be able to talk about different parts of it. It's been awful. So I actually paid to be a part of this group. And I have to say, starting out writers, don't be afraid to invest in yourself, because a lot of times those paid levels allow you, when you get into them, you can learn so much. I have learned so much from being a part of the Author Ad School by Brian Cohen. And so they have, basically they have experts that I can throw my cover up and be like, okay, this is great, right? And they can be like, well, your character doesn't match characters in the genre. The dragon looks too big. Like at one point the dragon was too big, and they're like, there's no way she's gonna beat that dragon. Look at how big he is. And I was like, okay, all dragons are big, okay? But I don't know what to tell you. But I guess we'll make it look smaller. And so it's just things like that I don't even perceive. I don't even notice it. I'm getting better at it. So I'm learning. We all have to, like, it's funny how it's just not something that I've ever chosen to learn. I've never chosen to spend time learning it. And I still don't trust myself, but I am getting better at it to where I can at least say, oh, that's a good cover and that's a bad cover, which is, the beginning of the journey.
I love how when you and I were talking about this book and we were talking about the cover of the book, and we had discussed how sometimes you'll find a cover with a battle female, but then she looks like she's in lingerie.
Yeah.
And that you had talked about how you wanted your character to have a little modesty to her, and that you went back and made them shorten the skirt, or lengthen the skirt. I'm sorry,
and
lengthen,
put a
yeah.
cape on, because like those shoulders. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't imagine, and maybe it's just because I like battles, but I would never go into battle with my shoulders bare. I'm like, hello, I do not want that cut off. That's important. So I feel like there needs to be some element of realistic battle garb on our females. And I feel like also it sends the wrong message to our young ladies that if you want to be a successful warrior, you need to be naked. And I'm kind of like, I don't want that message being perpetuated into my daughter. Again, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I want her to realize that you can wear sweatpants and a sweatshirt and win a battle.
Yeah, no, I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, we've
Anybody else got questions?
Well, Joan of Arc's never depicted in anything but full plate.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like that's.
And that's appropriate
Yes,
for
for
battle.
battle.
She was fighting. I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
don't show up at Orleans
No.
in a chainmail thong.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
It is
Right.
ridiculous.
But I remember you and I having that discussion, how that was, you were one of the first authors, so like, oh my God, she actually has clothes on.
Well, and the next thing I've started working on with my designer, so this current cover, book 3, I had her put leather pants on. Because I was like, why are they all wearing dresses? I don't understand that either. Like these beautiful, they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, I think they're gorgeous, but I'm kind of like, well, I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know how often I've worn a ball gown, but it's not often. So I just feel like, you know, I really want our young ladies to be able to see themselves on their covers. I want them to find themselves on the cover. And I want them to appreciate themselves in a way that is not just this one thing that society's decided sells.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when are you going to do these on like audio version?
Great question. So in the conference, so that has been like, I'm not doing it. That's been like the whole like before this moment. So I have two avenues I'm exploring right now. And it's so funny because we were talking about Christmas presents earlier. One of the things that I have asked for, you had said birthday present was, you know, and so one of the things I've asked for this Christmas are things to build my own audio studio in my office. Now I may go that route. I'm going to try it, see it, if it's awful or if it's impossible or if I end up being as talented as I was with book covers. I'm definitely going to outsource it. I met these really awesome people in Vegas at the Writers Conference, and they're called Podium, and they do a lot of stuff for indie authors, like audiobooks for indie authors. And so I'm hoping to get that going through them or myself, one of the two, but I'm anticipating within the next 12 months.
I think that you would be good for audio because, so Jessica, who you met the other night, she and I had listened to audiobooks. And you know, you've got some people who every other word is,
yeah, no.
and you can hear it and it's hard to, or they do the heavy breathing where they breathe every single word and you're just like, stop breathing, you know. But I feel like your voice would be good to, and I mean, besides you wrote it.
Well, and I read to my students. I mean, I read a lot of stuff to my students, and so you know, one of the things that I have noticed is my students enjoy it when I read to them, and I'm like, well, maybe that could be something.
Sure.
But again, it's going to be one of those things where I have to see, like, do I have the stamina to teach all day, come home, and then speak? And that's really a big question mark for me as far as like, now I may end up doing it in the summertime where I'm not teaching, but I spend a good portion of my day talking, and so by the time I get home, I'm kind of like, tired, my voice is tired. So
Sure.
It's one of those, I just have to see if it's a viable option. It's a great question though, thank you.
I would see if you couldn't borrow a studio before investing in one.
Really?
Because you may discover you hate it. I tried something similar and discovered I don't really like reading. I was reading other people's stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. How would you borrow someone's studio? Like, you mean like rent a space?
I don't know.
I don't either. Well, we're in Nashville. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody with a studio out there. I mean,
There's going to be a microphone live somewhere in there.
well,
There's one on 12th Avenue.
oh wow. Okay. Well, there you go. I maybe.
There's also one that I know of that is in
Really? Yeah, I might be getting some information from the two of you before we leave today, so I could try that out and decide. One of my previous careers was a professional musician, and so I have half a studio already in my office. And so I was like, well, maybe, because I'd done demo CDs and things like that when I was pursuing the singer-songwriter thing. And so it's not that far of a leap for me, but I am a little concerned about how tiring it would be to do that all day teaching and then come home that evening and do it. And I like to do things fast. And there's nothing fast about it. I mean, for each hour of audio, there's like 6 hours of work, and that sounds horrible to me.
During about half the year, I do a 3-minute segment for a podcast for people I write for. And I do history of horror. And I just pick a topic, and I speak for 3 minutes. And I'm just doing it on the microphone on my computer. So
Yeah.
it sounds really good. But I find it taxing
It's about to get real loud.
to maintain a steady pace and not stumble. Because I'm doing it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I tried it with script. What works for you though may be completely different.
Yeah.
I
Well,
would try it.
I feel like you're right. You kind of have to try it to see, and that's really where I'm kind of like, I'm just going to try it and see, and if not, I have this. I really actually like the Podium idea. I'm not opposed to sharing royalties, and so I feel like if there was one thing that I just kind of went, someone else needs to do this, that might be the thing. So we'll see. Yeah, it's interesting. I like that idea though. I'm going to pull that in. Yeah, it's a really good. Well, it's funny because I asked my sister for the little screens that you put in front of the microphone, and for the part that goes around it, and she's like, "What is this you're buying?" And I said, "Don't worry, it's just what I want. Okay, you asked me what I want for Christmas. This is what I want. Don't question it." She's like, "What is this for?" And I was like, everything's going to be about writing. Like, I love doing this, and it's my passion.
So I think at this point we're going to let you do a reading because I know you had 2 things that you wanted to read. So
I'm actually only going to read one. I decided to drop the first one. If you want to see the first one, what I was going to read was the first chapter.
Sure.
I always feel like a book should start at the beginning. It's kind of funny, especially since the beginning is not my favorite part to write. But that's actually on my YouTube. So if you want to listen to chapters 1 of each one of the books, that's on my YouTube. Anyone's welcome to go. What I'd like to share is one of my favorite parts, which are like battle scenes and dangerous, like when everything gets real scary. So I'm going to start with chapter 12, which is, my dad says to start a book at the back so we can decide if it's worth reading. I say start in the middle to decide if it's worth reading, because that's where you really get to find out what's that action going to be like.
Sure.
Yeah. So if that's okay, I'll go ahead and read this.
Have at it.
"Have you lost your mind?" Evie whispered, barely daring to speak in the presence of the roiling black smoke now writhing along the ground. "My mind is fine." The smoke climbed itself behind James. Snake-like vines reached for him, each convulsing as if breathing. "You're under the influence of demons, James. This isn't you. We have to leave now. You have to listen to me." She tamped back her emotions, refusing to give up. "Look at me. Do you see any demons influencing me?" He raised his arms and pretended to search for demons. She couldn't help the sarcasm in her words. "Clearly you can't see them." "And you can." His eyebrows shot up. "Don't worry. Like you helped me. I got you. You can't see it yet, but you will. We'll be incredible together." The vine swept up and attached to the back of his neck, forming a black cape draping from his shoulders. He approached her, the black cape sliding with him, his jaw set with determination. The clasp of the necklace lay open, one end in each of his hands. Tendrils of darkness slipped from the demonic cape, turning his veins black, climbing down his arms, spreading, leaving bits and pieces of darkness embedded in the necklace he was offering her. "Don't you touch me with that." She crouched, ready to tackle her way out of there, when she blinked and her vision shifted. The shadows had overgrown bushes, were normal again. The glowing men no longer were visible, protecting her. Suddenly, the world, as James experienced it, was hiding the evil from her, too. "What's the matter? You look like you just saw a ghost." James turned to smirk at the boys. Shade moved across from James. "We're here to help you." Evie didn't understand why James was dead set on this, but she 100% was sure he wasn't helping her. She searched the shadows. Where did the monsters go? Could they vanish as easily as they appeared? Her voice came out breathlessly. I know you haven't had it easy." She blinked, trying to bring back the vision. Where were the monsters lurking? Did they move closer? She needed the glowing men to know they were there to protect her. She couldn't fight this battle alone. She couldn't. "Not easy?" He scoffed. "You're the only consistent person in my life." The truth gutted her. I can't even imagine. Her parents were distracted with her brother's illness, but they still tried to be good parents, even if they couldn't spend a ton of time with her. They all fought to remain together against the odds, and together they won. Well, sort of. She wouldn't call this winning. "No, not many people can," he stepped toward her. "I do know a bit, living side by side with you for years, going to Sunday school together, attending the same classes, and all those years before when we played together on the playground showed me enough. Plus, your mom's been there the entire time, too." Would he even listen? Another blink brought back the dark mist slithering around his forearms. He frowned. "Maybe in the beginning, but after I set her car on fire." She withdrew. She'd try, but if things got hard, she gave up and went back to her work. When I questioned her, all she would say was, "Children should choose their own path, should grow and pursue whatever they wish, be whoever they want to be," and she'd disappear again. "James, it wasn't all bad. Don't believe the lie. It's only a lie if it's untrue." "What about the stories she told you about your dad?" She remembered James's excitement when he'd learned something new. Sometimes she was willing to talk about Dad, but it all ended with the fire. "You remember." A cold glint filled his eyes. Black veins pulsed up his neck and across his cheeks, removing the white in his eyes. Her heart jackhammered in her chest. She needed help. Please. She had to convince James this wasn't the way. "I remember. James, you were trying to figure out how to be the man of the house at 10 years old. No one would fault you for rebelling." She tried to calm her shaky voice. "This isn't rebelling. Don't think that. I'm over it. I'm choosing my path, and I want you with me. He paused and glanced over his shoulder. For what? She didn't know. Her parents took care of you. Your parents took care of you mostly. What they sucked at was letting you make your own decisions, sheltering you, keeping you weak while your brother healed. Well, it's the reason we're here right now. I'll have to teach you. I'll carry you until you can stand beside me on your own. You'll understand eventually. You'll forget their lies one day. He'd lost his mind. You know me, I can't church. He spat it like a curse word. The boys chuckled. Poor suckers. If God really cared, he'd listen. Boring sermons, the same droning songs. Sure, there's a God. He doesn't care for the meanderings of puny humans. His voice carried the lisp of several demons. James. Her voice left her in a tiny whisper. He cares. I believe. Blah, blah, blah. You fell hook, line, and sinker for all their mumbo-jumbo. He clenched his jaw. Well, that sucks. All things in God's timing and whatnot is a load of... He drifted off, the dark veins fading for a moment before they turned black again. You shouldn't have to wait. The rest of us didn't. Pushing the timing up isn't asking for a new gift or returning one you don't like. We're just moving things along. His face turned bright red. I want what's right more than I want it now. When the timing happens, it's going to be awesome. I don't want to wait, but there are some things I have to wait for. How can you be serious? It's that blasted church your parents shoved down your throat. You're completely blind. He flung his hands out in angry frustration, sending tiny flames through the air. They landed at her feet. She stomped the embers out. You're being an idiot, listening to antiquated notions. Sweat rolled off his temple. There's a guy way up, a benefactor, who's going to help me and you. I met him. He gave me my token here. James lifted it off his chest and shoved the other one at her. And this is for you to wear. There's always a catch, she shook her head, backing up into shade. It's just a token, something to show how much he supports us and how he will help us when we need him. Tony, the guy's name is Tony? Worst name ever. No, he's the delivery guy. The benefactor wants to help us anonymously. Why would we reject him? He knows I come from humble beginnings, and he wants to help me. The necklace dangled from his hand while he reached for her. She pressed against shade, trying to put more room between herself and James. There was no way she was putting anything around her neck. Not for James, not for Tony, and especially not for some mysterious benefactor who believed it was a token of some sort of unspoken deal. No way. James was undeterred. He stepped into her space, caging her between himself and shade. Up close, the medallion touching James's skin sent threads of black mist latching onto his chest like leeches. You need to take yours off. She wanted to remove it herself. It was doing something to him, changing him, distorting his memory so he would believe lies. All this work to set up this meeting, his eyes blazed in fury. No, what a waste. Didn't you want this? Us together? I did this for you, to offer you something you needed. He closed in on her. Shade's arms closed around her. I don't want this. She waved her arm to indicate the boys surrounding her, but Shade caught it and pinned it to her side. I came for you. The you I know still is in there underneath all the stupid evil. So, I was being stupid. You don't want this. You don't want to know what your gift is. His jaw clenched. No, you're not being stupid. This isn't for me. Not for you? Well, that's certainly the truth. He shuddered his expression, hiding behind a cold mask of hatred. He couldn't hate her, not yet. It is the truth. She searched the faces of the boys, tried to pry her arms from Shade's grip. Will nothing ever work with you? You're unbelievable. James curled his hands at his sides. His pulse jumped in his neck. His eyes were still filled with blackness, transforming him into a ghost of the man she loved. The invisible world beyond, the swirling cloud ignored her plight. He'd ignored her for years. She'd been there every day across the street in his classes, ready to help him with his homework and the first date and the first demon attack, causing her whole family to need protection. Now, this date was full of evil, and James was not himself anymore. She should slap herself. Everything prior to this had counted down to this moment.
I love it. So that's the involved left portion. What we're going to do now is line up in heaven. And so I think that we can start. Well, I will let you guys go to that.
Awesome. Thank you.
If anybody hasn't purchased, just let us know and we'll be happy to get that taken care of.
And I would love everybody to just write your name down and your email